Rich Clark just fought Nico, right?
Yep. Come on. I'm gonna go. All right. As they say, let's go, Andy. Let's bring them back. We're back.
Cheers, everybody. Right
Cheers.
Into it.
We got the mics going. You got your mic on.
I think it is. It should be good. Test. We should be fine. Monday
Woo.
night. We're at Coops. We're in the basement. Got a burger I'm working on. It's fight week.
It is
You're drinking water to compensate for the monster.
I already had 3 monsters, so
all right. So you got to balance
going
it up.
Going low key.
And I
today.
just grabbed an empty can to cheers because it's going to be a hard-hitting weekend. So I got to save the liver for then.
What's up, Pico? What's up, Gage Luby?
We are back.
We are back. Yeah, we took the summer off, so far after the last show, just kind of relaxing and taking some Mondays to ourselves. But it was fight week. We cannot miss a fight week breakdown. So for tonight, we have the entire card taking place this Saturday night, Cage Titans 60. We're going to break it all down, talk about the fights, go over all the matchups. If you haven't seen the card already, it's all on CageTitansFC.com. Full card, top to bottom, in order. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, hit every fighter up and get your tickets before this Saturday. Do not wait. We say that every time. Your fighters are cutting weight. They've been begging you to hit them up for tickets. Don't hit them up last minute. Hit them up tonight. Hit them up tomorrow morning and get those tickets. And if you can't meet up with those fighters, you can always visit CageTitansFC.com to purchase your tickets. And for those who cannot be in attendance, don't worry. Our broadcast partner, Spectation Sports, got you covered. They'll be streaming the entire event live. And when you do sign up at Spectation Sports, if you decide to stay home and watch it, use your favorite fighter's last name as their promo code. Gets you 20% off and also gets a kickback to your favorite fighter's last name that you put in. So
that's one of the best parts about the partnership is whatever streams you sell as a fighter, you're getting kickback from that. So it's a tremendous partnership. So I mean, plenty of tickets left, but the fighter's going to be hitting the sauna. Can't iterate that enough. We do it. We preach it over the top here all the time, especially coming up on fight week. To stress to get the tickets. It's the worst part about fight week, honestly. So
the worst part is like you've been saying for a month you've been fighting and you tell all these guys, get your tickets. Then it's like the week of the fight. Everybody wants to come out from the woodwork and hit you up for tickets. Then it's like you turn your tickets in at weigh-in day and then you'll get tagged. Oh, do you still got tickets? It's like, mother effer, I've been telling you for a month now. But either way, the fighters really do appreciate your support. But with that being said, hit them up early, get those tickets early. Shout out to Rob Pico again. He's got 14 people coming, and Superfan Pico always brings new bodies. He's got 7 first-time Cage Titans fans coming. So shout out to Rob Pico and the crew he's bringing. We'll make sure we say hi to those guys. And Willie Alfano, man, been a long time since we've heard from you. Maybe we'll get you back in the cage one day.
I don't know. He's former opponent of our first matchup of the night.
Well, first matchup.
Yeah, first matchup. That's what I said. I was selective with my words for a reason because Cage Titans 60, it's an event.
Yes.
You're getting a little bit of everything. We've got Muay Thai, we've
grappling.
got grappling, super fight, amateur MMA, amateur titles, professional. It's and people returning to Cage Titans.
Smorgasbord.
It's
A couple UFC vets
exactly.
returning. We got some OGs, some over 40-year-olds making their debut.
Yep.
Before we jump into it, off the rip, right out the gate, what's like one storyline that you're looking forward to in this coming into this card?
Oh man, right at the top of the card, I got to give the credit where credit's due. Jay Perrin and Don Shane is both coming back and facing some dangerous people in Lionel Bugs Young and Robert Lustig, respectively, in the main and co-main event. These guys were successful champions at Cage Titans. They went on to the UFC. They showed what they're made of in fights, showed their toughness. They didn't get the win in the UFC there, and now they're back on the trail back to the UFC. And that's something we're really not familiar with here, but we're going to be along for the journey to get anybody back to the big time show roster. And coming back, Lionel Bugs Young has called for this Jay Perrin fight since he was in the UFC. He wants all the smoke, all the smoke. He wants all the tough fights. Just coming off the title fight against the party, he's still asking for the top.
He wants the party rematch if he pulls out this win too.
And Lustig coming off a win over Leo Ladea.
Yeah, and a tough fight against Mo Al-Kanani.
He took like I want to say like 3-4 years of a layoff and has been facing nothing but the toughest of toughest competition on his way back. So when the opportunity came to face a UFC veteran in his return fight back to the local scene, he took it. And that's a fight that I'm equally excited for, to welcome back Jay Perrin and Don Shanis, and to welcome Lustig to the Cage Titans cage for the first time, and Lionel.
So you're going right to the top of the card.
Right to the top of the card, just because I think that those are some, we've been really top heavy with the professional titles that have been on the line as of late. And it's just a different storyline coming into the top side of the card, and I think that's fun and interesting enough as it is. I think they're both fights that you could overlook the dangers of Robert Lustig and Lionel Young if you look at their records, but you see the caliber of opponent that they faced, the fighters that they have wins against, the fighters that they have losses against, and of learning lessons, that the durability of them and their ability to finish anybody and finish fights. You could easily overlook the caliber of these matchups if you just look at it on paper. And that's
so. I got a couple
why
things.
That's why I went right to the top of the card.
I got a couple things. My background's in marketing and sales, and I agree with you, Lionel. We say it a lot with Cage Titans. We'll give you the stage, we'll give you the platform. The moment is yours. What are you gonna do with that moment? It's up to you guys. People have taken it and just gone nuts with it. Look at the party. Lionel with his purge walkout. There's so many guys that just, Valdina has captivated the audience. There's guys who just, they got the stage and then they take it and run from there. When Jay Perrin was off in the UFC and he held that Cage Titans bantamweight title before he left, I'll never forget that. Lionel got that win, comes right over to the commentary booth where you're sitting, and he's screaming at Perrin, when you're done with the UFC, get that ass back here. I'm going to whip that ass. It was just amazing moment. Obviously, we wish Perrin's continued success in the UFC, but here he is back trying to get back to the UFC, and he's back with Cage Titans trying to get some wins before he can get back up there. And it just seems like the book was written. Here's Lionel, and Lionel's like, I told you when you got back, I'm going to whip that ass, and here's his opportunity to do that. So definitely at the top of this card. I do like that. I got a couple other moments that I'm excited for.
There's plenty of them.
So many, but that was your one. But let me catch up before we're going to break it down. We're going to do our best to keep it to an hour tonight, because I will take full responsibility. Yep. I forgot my charger for my laptop. So guys, if we go black,
that's what it
is. So we'll be back and we'll see you on Saturday.
He only had one hand available when he left the door, and instead of grab the laptop charger, he grabbed the monster.
I will say today is licensing day for all the fighters. Yep. So I was in Boston all day licensing all 28 guys, which is a task in its own. So I'm a little all over the place, 3 monsters deep, but I did forget my laptop charger. So I only got so much life left. Just to catch up, Justin Simmons, let's go, boys. Got 8 coming with him, sitting on the front row. We're a couple minutes behind. The hell is that noise? We're down in our office is down in the basement of Coop's Bar and Grill, and the soda machine's outside. So somebody upstairs is pumping some soda, and it ran out, so they had to come down and change it. That was that pss, pss, pss. Cage Titans IPA, yes, Second Wind Brewery is doing it again. Cage Titans IPA, and then 42nd Parallel as well. They have the lightweight lager. That's one from 2 shows ago. And Jay Perrin and Lionel Young are featured on the can, which is always something cool for our fighters. Jackie Landry, not sure who you are, but I love that you love watching fights in Plymouth. This card is crazy. Right on cue, Christian. We can't wait to see you back, Christian. You had a great debut. When you're ready to come back, we'll be here waiting for you. Valdino, 100%. You definitely own the moment. Aaron Hughes, Fight Week, mother effers. Let's go. Rob Pico's looking together. Looking forward to McDougal. Willie backs me. Priorities. Fuck the Charger. I needed the monster.
I'm never getting out of here in time. If we go through every single comment.
King of matchups. Hassan Graham. I'll be home soon. Talks about September. Not to get too far ahead of us. Bro, Ozzy and Brody will be wild. Evan Williams, can't wait. So I'm caught up with the comments. Let's go right to it. Our first matchup of the night. We're giving you a little something and everything. We have Shane Doherty making his long-awaited return to the cage in a super fight grappling match against Jeff Joy, both amateur champions. Doherty's been dealing with some injuries after, his great undefeated title reign as an amateur champ. Yep. He put his, I got to change the battery in the camera too. But anyways, he took some time off to heal some injuries. He's put his pro debut on hold for a little while he can heal up those injuries. And the goal is to get this super fight going, to get the competitive juices flowing, and hopefully be back in the cage fight.
Yeah, a great way to welcome him back to competition if he is nursing some injuries and throwing himself to a professional level of competition in front of the Plymouth Memorial Hall crowd. Jeff Joy, as prominent as they get, has fought his entire career at Cage Titans. No stranger. No stranger to the Cage Titans cage. And Doherty, he's been in between layoffs, between school and injuries throughout stints as an amateur on his road to becoming a champion. And this is him kind of dipping his toes in the professional pool before diving back in while throwing fisticuffs. And that's about as good of a matchup as you could ask for the young prospect and Shane Doherty and Jeff Joy, who's pretty well along in his professional career, has a few years on him, but he doesn't have a fight listed up, so good way for him to stay active too and test himself against the young buck who's up a weight class, because Doherty's a 45er. And
well, that's a good thing about Joy. I was like, Joy, we're going to do it at 55. He goes, I don't care what he weighs. I'll be there. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
that's just kind of how he
doesn't. Yeah, even if he comes in and doesn't cut any weight and he walks in there at 138, he'll grapple at 155. He doesn't give a crap whatsoever, I'm sure. So it's going to be a fun way to start it out. Both guys are, they have different styles to their jiu-jitsu attacks, as you see in their MMA fights. So it's going to be fun to see them scrap it out where they don't get to open up their attacks with punches. So
there you go.
It's going to be a fun way to.
It's a good way to get back into the competing for Shane Doherty. Mm-hmm. And Jeff's had a little bit of time off, though obviously not as long as Shane, but he hasn't competed in a little while, so get some rest off him as well. Mm-hmm. And I know he's been picking up the grappling a lot. He grappled at Combat Zone. He's grappling for us this week, and I think the following week he's doing CES. So he's trying to get back into the grappling roots and
get the juices flowing.
Yeah, there you go. So Christian, I just threw the September 23rd Cage Titans 61 info in the comments. So just hit us up. I know you guys have a new gym owner, manager type guy. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Anyways, next, we said we had a little bit of everything for everybody. The next is a Muay Thai fight. Muay Thai bout.
And I'm really excited for this one. Rich Clark had a great outing against Nico Mavromatis. He took the loss in that fight, but showing his well-versed attacks and his versatility and his durability as well. Just a fun scrap, and he's going to be taking on Carter Whitty at a Regiment Training Center, who is a scrappy kid to the core. I've seen him scrap at different matchups, I'll say. Smokers who, I've seen him scrap at smokers. They go on. Who gives a crap?
Smokers?
But they're fun.
Those illegal things?
Oh, whatever.
No, I know.
It's authority that makes a law, not wisdom. So whatever. But anyways, I know he's scrappy. He's training with dogs down at Regiment, and Rich Clark out of CM Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu made a name for himself in his first fight, and looking to get into the win column. And this one, just talking about moments to highlight circle this one. This one's going to be a dogfight that probably goes the distance. Both guys are just never say die, as durable as they make them, and both guys love throwing all 8 limbs. And with the amateurs allowed to throw elbows now, this is going to make it for that much more fun of a fight. Yeah.
There you go. Good way to start off the combat portion. Aaron Hughes said Carter Willie's going to be a problem. Valdina said the fans want combat jiu-jitsu. All right, maybe. If you find a dance partner, I know you're taking a little time off in the summer. Maybe you'll be into doing a combat jiu-jitsu match if you're not going to fight in September. So if you find it, I'll book it, Valdina. Slippery Pete. Hola, bitches. What's up, Slippery Pete? Engaged Luby looking at the eyeballs at September 23rd. Well, now we already had a jiu-jitsu match. We had a Muay Thai match. Let's combine the two and get an MMA fight. Our first fight of the night, Connor Morrow out of Team KTA, Walter Smith Catito's team up in New Hampshire. I think it's him and Joey Gomez that run that school, taking on Jack High Noon out of South Shore Sport Fighting. Somebody's going to get their first victory inside the cage. Both these guys are victoryless in their 5-6 combined matches that they've had. They haven't found victory yet. But both of them have showed a ton of skill, ton of potential in both their outing and all their outings.
And this kind of just came to fruition, didn't it?
Yeah. So Connor was looking for a fight, and Jack was going to be fighting at NEF, and then something happened up in Maine where his opponent just no-showed. It kind of all fell together. It just worked out, and now both guys are fighting, and we're ready to roll.
Yeah, and Jack Noon lost his fight against Hannon Sanford, and that was a scrap to the very bitter end. Showed his toughness, showed his durability, showed his ability to piece his hands together. A lot of prowess in all facets of MMA that he showed, and he is just built to fight. Learned a lot of lessons in that fight, and I'm sure he's going to come back better than ever. And Connor Morrow, haven't seen him fight. I know this fight really just got made.
He's not Combat FC. Combat Zone, NEF.
He's in a similar position that Hannon Sanford was when he fought Jack Noon. I think he was 0-3, at the time. So let's see how his experience comes into play. And like you said, somebody's has to go, and that makes it very exciting. Both guys hungry for that first.
And I'm sure Team KTA,
both guys showing that
their first trip down to Cage Titans. Yeah. They've been competitive a lot at NEF and Combat Zone first time, and at Combat FC first time down at Cage Titans. The Hall does a little something to you, so we're going to see the best out of those guys.
Can't wait.
Rob Pico, before we get our next fight, here's the Rob Pico plan. The superfan Rob Pico, 1 p.m.-ish at Martini's for lunch, 2:30 for the Second Wind Brewery pregame bash. So head on over to Second Wind. They're the ones who brew our Second Wind Fight Night IPA. And moving along on the card, we're doing all right for time. Kevin Gonsalves out of the UFC gym, who's 1-0, had a big victory down at Reality Fighting in his debut. He's taking on Travis Soulard out of Triforce. I hear some great things about Travis Soulard. He comes with an extensive, I think it's a Taekwondo background, and he has a ground game to match. They've been talking about trying to get this guy a fight for a long time. I was finally able to get something together. And I'm stoked to see what he has.
And Triforce has had a wave of new up-and-coming fighters making their debuts, and each one of them has made a splash, win, lose, or draw, has put on exciting fights. So really excited to see Travis Soulard make that debut, especially if they're speaking highly of it. And Kevin Gonsalves, 1-0, undefeated, taking on the debut and fighter out of a school that is red hot right now.
I got to shout out Tyler King. He's been really doing a lot of work at the UFC gym because, you hear UFC gym, you're kind of like, oh, that's not really, or, it's more of a fitness one. But he's really been taking that MMA program with Mola. They had Ozzy Martin that's representing, who we're talking about in the title fight later, Kevin Gonsalves. They Raul Scott. They had Wyatt.
Anastasia Daphne.
Yeah, so they're putting together a little team there, which is nice to see them starting to get out on the scene and getting a lot of fighters. I can tell you this, I watched some clippets of Kevin's first fight. This fight is one of those fights that no one probably knows either guy from Cage Titans because they're new.
Yep.
This is one that definitely circle and be like, this could be the one we come back to next Monday. Like, oh shit, that was a fight. None of us expected it. This is that one that I'm going to say.
Precisely, because we don't have those X Factor 2 debuting amateur fighters fighting each other on this, where you really have no idea. But this fight's about as close as it gets with the debut in Soulard versus Kevin Gonsalves, who has yet to fight for Cage Titans, but is coming in with his first amateur win under his belt. So
let's
Certainly
see what happens.
Don't blink when those two enter the cage.
So next up, want to go into, we have Naquan Calderon out of Big Dog Snake Pit. I got to give him a shout out for the creativity on the name. He is taking on Brandon Boats out of South Shore Sport Fighting, Brandon Motor Boats. Interesting fight here. So Naquan, hasn't had some success in the MMA world. He's 0-2 in MMA. He's 3-0 in boxing. So I think obviously this is going to be a fight where if this stays standing, Boats is going to probably be in some trouble. He hasn't really shown much in the stand-up department in his 2 fights, but he's had some great takedowns and ground and pound.
And he's a finisher when he gets there.
When he gets to the ground.
And he's fighting for a charitable cause. I believe there's a story behind his
a friend of his who has cancer. So he was retired. He was done. His friend has. I'm not going to do it justice, so I'm going to try. But I think it's like stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. And he was like, I want to do this to raise money for my friend's treatment. So he kind of came out of retirement, to kind of do this one more time, sell some tickets, sell some T-shirts, raise some awareness within his friend group and things for his buddy. So that's why he came back. And Naquan Calderon out of New York, like I said, he's 3-0 in boxing, 0-2 so far in MMA. So that would probably tell you that
he's not 1-1.
1-1. So it's funny. I have him down as 1-1 on the thing. They had him as a win, and then they must have reported it wrong or flip-flopped it. Because like after I put the card together, like last week, I went to look up his record when I got his application, and it was 0-2. I was like, it said 1-1, but they reported the results wrong. So he's 0-2 in MMA, 3-0 in boxing.
All right, so he's got hands, and it's going to be a striker versus grappler matchup.
And they're always self-defecating. Brandon Boats, my striking and grappling are equally terrible. I can lose anywhere. But either way, he's raising money for a good cause, to bring awareness. And Naquan's been a true gentleman. When this fight kind of put together, they kind of talked to each other. I think they saw each other fighting on the local scene. Some backstory there. They kind of talked to each other and kind of made the fight, as kind of a commemorative for Brandon Boats, his friend. So this fight will be interesting. So there you go. No pressure, Boats. There you go. Next up, this is another fight that I'm pretty excited about because Shane Mulligan is a name that probably 6-7 years ago, everybody knew about. He was an 18-year-old kid. I remember he made his amateur debut the week after he graduated high school. I remember making posters for him. It was like,
I think I was at the card when he made that
before
fight.
You even
before working for you, before I think he even fought for you. I was wasted, I think, but I was on a different planet.
So Shane Mulligan, I remember making posters for him because Plymouth High School has their graduation ceremonies at Memorial Hall. So I made posters. See him graduate here today. See him fight in a cage next weekend. He had a great undefeated career as an amateur 6-7 years ago. Then he fought for a title and he lost to Pat McCrohan for the title, his first loss. Then his family is big into construction, absolute building contractors down in Plymouth. His dad, Mike Mulligan. So he focused on a family, getting married, doing all that stuff. He kind of stepped away. Then about a year ago, Loco Lobo reopened a gym in Plymouth because the backstory on Loco Lobo, they had CCFA in Plymouth for years. And then they moved locations. And they haven't been in Plymouth. There hasn't been an MMA gym in Plymouth for 6 to 7 years since they left. Once that gym came back, Shane saw that there's a gym in his hometown again, started picking up the gloves, dusting them off, and here he is fighting, probably about 6 months after getting back in the gym. So I'm expecting to see interesting, more mature, older. And then as for Michael Colon, I know I'm talking up Shane Mulligan. Michael Colon, he's 8-4 as an amateur kickboxer. This is his first MMA fight. Big, tall, rangy, lanky fighter. You've said you've seen him fight before. Title holder down at Wishers, I believe.
I've seen him fight in Smokers. I've seen him fight Lion Fight. I've called a fight of his or two at Lion Fight. So I'm familiar with Michael Colon. I think he is rangy. He loves using his range. Lanky middleweight and truly decorated striker. So it's going to be a really fun welcome back from Mulligan, who has a lot of hype behind him. Like you said, he was an amateur title challenger back in the day. So you might look at the records 2-1 with that much hype.
Aaron Hughes, I fought Colon in a Muay Thai fight. He's a beast.
He is.
So there you go. He's making his amateur MMA debut with Aaron Hughes as a pro fighter.
He is an absolute beast. I will second that notion. by short fuse right there. So this fight is a certified banger right there. Even though Michael Colon's making his MMA debut, he has all the makings of a fighter. I don't have any idea what his ground game is like, but he's confident enough.
He's training at Cage JSA.
Yep.
So he's down there. He has Cam Rosinski cornering Carlos Candelario cornering him. So like obviously there's some big names in the MMA world. So obviously he's working on his ground game as well.
Of course. So if he's got the same kind of creativity with the ground game that he does with the striking game that I've seen out of him, it's going to be a really fun scrap. And Shane Mulligan, I remember the young.
The future.
I remember the event where it was, this kid just graduating high school, and remember being one of the people in the crowd just cheersing it and going nuts. And so it's going to be fun to call one of his fights finally as well. So there we go. Cool. Middleweight's throwing down.
And I always love seeing
that division's growing.
Yeah. I always love seeing guys who've stepped away for a while and then kind of find where their motivation is to come back to the sport, because you don't see a lot of times where somebody takes a 6-7 year break, kind of like Brendan Battles. Battles was a guy who was a can't miss prospect, then decided to have, I think he has 3 kids now, started his own business, and he came back to fighting. So here we go. See what Shane Mulligan taking on Michael Colon. Speaking about certified bangers, our amateur title fight is up next. Brody McDougal, undefeated knockout artist, taking on equally as strong in the knockout field, Ozzy Martin, who's also undefeated. The 170 belt is up for grabs. This fight, when it was made, we've been talking about for a while.
Straight up killers from New Hampshire. That's just what you're getting out of here. 2 undefeated guys. We've talked about somebody's has to go. It's just as fun watching 2 guys that have suffered losses, that are hungry to get that first victory, still tried and tested to go in there and achieve the win. These 2 guys are on the opposite end. Never have tasted defeat before. Brody McDougal's already an amateur champion in a different promotion, has been slated to fight for this title before. He is hungry and motivated to electrify the crowd as he has done in Muay Thai and MMA at that venue.
And
Ozzy Martin,
right?
and Ozzy Martin, the same realm. He might be an early contender for knockout of the year with his win over Daniel Keepers. That was one of the most insane knockouts that we've seen. And he just propelled himself right to the top of the division. Both are young, hungry competitors. Both are fearless in there. Both think that they're untouchable and unbeatable.
The confidence,
right now.
both these guys.
And it's the 170-pound title, one of these amateur title fights that we always hold in high reverence because it prepares people for the professional level, gives you a platform to fight a 15-minute fight, gets you ready for that professional debut. And we've seen some of the highest intensity pound-for-pound scraps that we have ever seen, that I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes.
Ben Perry's taking McDougal. He said he sleeps Ozzy round 1. I don't know.
Both guys have the capacity to sleep each other, and I think both guys have the capacity to surprise each other and take things into the deep waters for the first time. Both have knacks for finishing guys.
And
really early.
What makes me excited about this fight is I've long preached that, at Cage Titans, it's not about who sells tickets that just gets an amateur belt handed to them, who's the biggest ticket seller. These are 2 guys that are both from New Hampshire, but they're both the best in New England.
And they happen to be bringing busloads of people down too this time around.
I think they are. I mean, I hope they are. Bring all the fans from New Hampshire. Come on down.
There were people rocking Ozzy Martin and Brody McDougal paraphernalia throughout the whole crowd. Both times that they fight, they're out-of-staters. They're New Englanders. We roll deep, so it's going to be an atmosphere from the Great White North of New Hampshire coming down to Plymouth Memorial Hall, and it's going to be absolutely deafening in there when those 2 step into the cage. Just at the pinnacle of the undercard.
There we go, and then what a way to cap off the undercard. Shout out to Kels Minor. When are we going to get Lamont Payne back in there? We'll have to get him back in there. No-sos for us, everyone. So obviously Ben Perry is a no-sos guy. And Pico said if he wins Powerball, we're taking Cage Titans to home. All right, sounds good. Well, so moving on to the main card, we have a full 7-fight pro main card for you guys. We kind of alluded to this in the opening of the show. We have Greg Skin and Bones Jones making his professional debut at 50 years young. against another pro debuter, a teammate of yours, Dan Bartolini, at 46 years age. 46 years young.
Yep.
Two guys over 45 making their professional debuts. They had some solid amateur careers, a lot of experience. Skin and Bones has shown that he's got some skills on the ground, and he can easily submit you. Bartolini, teammate of yours, this guy's tough as they come. You say that he's impossible to finish. He's one of those guys.
He's been finished, but he's just tough. He's durable, and he has been on a hiatus and has been talking about making this comeback for years. And we finally got him to scrap, so it's been fun watching him and seeing the improvements that he's been making to all elements of his game, and really hungry just to.
And you've told me earlier that he
want to go in there and make that pro debut.
At 46, he's better than he's ever been.
Yeah, he's definitely been making some serious improvements to his game, and I can't wait to see him throw it in action. It's going to be really emotional for me, seeing somebody who I've been in the gym with since my first day, walking in there.
So he was there the first day you walked in?
Yeah, thereabouts. Back when George was training us up here in Mass.
He made his debut.
Now he's taking on Greg Jones, who's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
2009 he made his debut.
Yep. And like Ben Peake was undefeated as an amateur fighter. I knew Pogosian.
Yep.
He's fighting for the PFL now. So his amateur career, like he fought some dangerous guys decades ago and went the distance, and got his he was 1-6 as an amateur, but he got into it late, and as
this is a fun fight. This is a fight that people are gonna,
and I'm excited, man, because Greg Jones is very capable of winning in any facet of this game as well. It's going to be an extremely competitive scrap. Both guys, like you said, north of 45.
46 and 50.
Yeah, 46 and 50 respectively between Bartolini and Jones. And they have had moments at Memorial Hall. It's been a while for Barta, but Jones has electrified the crowd and put together some finishes and showed the people that he has found the fountain of youth. So that,
age ain't nothing but the number.
Nothing whatsoever with these two. These guys are trying to prove it. 96 combined years old, taking place, making a pro debut to make a splash. And both guys are tough old bastards, with all due respect for both of them, and I can't wait to see them scrap it. And
open up this pro card.
It's going to be fun, man.
I can tell you're getting giddy. You go.
Grab if you're taking a break from watching the kids and you're escaping your family and getting out and having a beer and watching some fights. When you watch this, really grab yourself a 42nd Parallel, a Second Wind Brewing IPA, and kick your feet up and watch these two old bastards, with all due respect,
I'm
throw
42.
down for this. If you don't feel youthful after this, and you're not going to throw a beer back in celebration for what these two are accomplishing, I don't know. You might not be human. This is going to be a scrap too.
Yeah, and that's what hits for me.
Fight, man. It's a great fight.
There's some people that might be sitting at home now, or will be sitting in the crowd on fight night, that might be a little older. And then that might give them that kick in the ass and be like, wow, man, look at these guys going out to it. Maybe they just get back into the gym.
They're all shredded,
whatever,
too.
It's gonna be great. So I'm pumped. Beer will be flowing, as Rob Pico says.
No doubt.
No doubt about it. Anyways, moving on to the next fight. We're doing great for time. Our ninth fight of night, Cornelius Williams is a late replacement, making his pro debut, taking on Aaron Hughes. Cornelius was scheduled to make his pro debut up at NEF in Maine. His opponent came in overweight. I literally got a text probably why they were at weigh-ins. It's like, my opponent didn't show up because he wasn't going to make weight. Do you need anybody next week? And I said, just so happens I do. And there you go. Cornelius is going to still be making a pro debut, just a little south of Maine, down in Plymouth, and taking on Aaron Hughes. He's out of Train to Go MMA out in New York. He's had a couple boxing fights. This is his first MMA fight. I believe he's a pro boxer, so he wasn't able to have any amateur MMA fights. He's going right into pro. Aaron Hughes, he said nothing was stopping him from getting on this card. He really had a bad taste in his mouth after that, no contest fight at the last event. Short Fuse Hughes, throwing bombs, banging moms, his moniker. He's looking to have some fun on July 22nd.
Yeah, and it was a result nobody that was in the cage or watching in the crowd or at home wanted with the no contest against Jake Hicksonbaugh. That was a scrap that was developing nicely, and it was unfortunate the way it ended, but here he is returning to get back to his winning ways, and Cornelius Williams making his debut. Like you said, he was slated to do so, and then was unfortunately unable to do so. So here he is just a few short weeks later, taking the momentum of that camp in stride and taking it to a whole nother fight card just a few states away, and taking on a very much more experienced fighter in Aaron Hughes, who we've seen be dangerous everywhere with abilities to finish it with his hands or his chokes or whatnot. So he's jumping back in hungry to erase that bad taste in his mouth from his last performance against Hicksonbaugh and jump back into the win column and really electrify the crowd. So I'm excited for this scrap, and kudos to Cornelius Williams for stepping up on short notice and not saying no and just accepting a fight against a tough competitor and Aaron Hughes to take on in your pro debut.
And Cornelius, like, you know, it speaks for him. He was making his pro debut against Kyle Hill, who was a 5-0 undefeated amateur champ out of Nosto. So tough fights is secondary to him. So we'll see what happens in this one. Next up, our 10th fight of the night, Marty Navis returns. The Beast, Marty Navis, taking on Montrell James. I will tell you that Montrell James, he's been trying to get on Cage Titans card for a while, and this kid has been putting in the work. He's been a pleasure to deal with. This kid is coming in hungry, ready to put on a show. You know, he is tagging us every day. He's putting a ton of work, and he's looking to come up and put a statement out. And I'm intrigued to see this fight because we know what Marty Navis is about. His entire amateur career, his entire pro career has been with Cage Titans. This kid brings it every time. You know, he's not afraid to rush you, and that intensity he brings to the cage. I think he's going to get matched here in Montreal, and it's going to make for a fun fight.
And he gets motivated after losses. In his last fight against Pat Casey, you're caught in the back mount, and Casey was able to finish him in the first. And to see him bouncing back and fighting this soon after that shows how hungry he is as a competitor. He still has that fire and is looking to go in and fight somebody who has a knack for finishing people as well. He's a very dangerous man in Montrell Williams. Like you said, he's been hungry to make this debut performance at Cage Titans and is jumping right into the deepest parts of the depths of the waters at 170 pounds. Somebody who has shown improvement. You go back and watch tape on him, you've seen the improvements in his game throughout his professional career. Been at it a while, really durable, goes the distance a lot, very tough to put away, and a lot of finishing capabilities. You see him overcoming adversity in a lot of his fights and finding a finish late. So I'm excited to see him fight for the first time at Cage Titans, and he's picking as tough of a draw for his Cage Titans debut in Marty Navis, who I'm always thrilled to call his fight.
I don't think anybody sees Marty Navis' name on a card is not excited. Exactly. And we're kind of piggybacking off the Aaron Hughes. He didn't like the results of his last fight, and he planned on taking this card off, and he was like, nope, I didn't like the results of my last fight. I'm coming back into it. Marty was in a similar situation. He came up short against Pat Casey, who we're going to talk about in a minute, but he was like, you know what, that left a bad taste in my mouth. Jump right back on the horse. It's a shout out to a lot of young fighters that, like, after a performance that you're not thrilled with, don't feel bad. Don't go back there. Just go back to the gym, lick your wounds, and get back there and start training. And there's only one way to right the wrongs. And if you don't like the performance, get right back in there and put on a better one.
Where you learn.
Yep. So win and learn. So there you go, Marty Navis and Montrell James. Next up, last opponent of Marty Navis, actually, Pat Casey out of G&G makes his return, and he's taking on the super difficult and tough guy, Sam Watford. Sam Watford was a stud in the amateur. I remember back in the day talking about a matchup with him and what's his name? Don Shanis. Almost came to fruition. And then Sam Watford, I mean, the biggest thing that stands out to me was his fight against Cameron Lachinoff, who was on the Ultimate Fighter, went to a split decision. Sam's a guy who fought at 55. He's fighting a guy at 85 and goes to decision, somebody who's been on the Ultimate Fighter. That shows some skills. He's gone to decision with Ali Zabi. He's gone to decision with Jacob Bone. He was in that 155-pound, $10,000 tournament. He is a tough guy, and he's a big 55 so. The fact that this fight going at 70 is not, I don't think he'll be giving up too much in size against Pat Casey. This fight's going to be fun, and may the best man win.
Yeah, and like you said, he's been someone who has been taking on the toughest of comers since he made his professional debut back in 2015, and he went on a bit of a hiatus after that Cameron Lachinoff fight, where he took about 4 years off, came back post-pandemic to take on Jacob Bone, and now he's Zabian back-to-back in his first fights. So that's just showing the caliber of fighters that he is
And he's
willing
now
to leave
with
competition
FAA.
and then return to competition with. So now he's fighting at FAA. So
with Nick Newell.
He's getting that savage trainer down in Connecticut coming up.
I think early in his career, he was a guy that just kind of got away with his pure athleticism and pure toughness, strength, and grit. And now he's kind of teamed up with Nick Newell down at FAA Connecticut. So I'm intrigued to see what he's going to bring to the table. He was scheduled to rematch Cameron Lachinoff not too long ago at Combat FC. The fight didn't happen. Cameron had some issues with the weight cut. So he was ready, already in camp, already in good shape, expecting to take on Cameron Lachinoff. And now he ends up taking on Cameron Lachinoff, training partner, and Pat Casey. Pat Casey, man, this guy has been another professional. I talked about it in the Marty Navis build-up. I've been dying to see Pat Casey in a Cage Titans cage for a long time. And he delivered.
He exploded on the scene to come in and finish Marty Navis in the first round like he did. He just showed that sold-out crowd exactly who Pat Casey is. The gorilla ninja, just an absolute animal going in.
What's tougher than a gorilla? A gorilla ninja.
He's an absolute beast, and he showed it. So he's coming back with the quick turnaround as well to keep his name at the top of the division. And you might look at it on paper and see Sam Watford at 3-5 and be like, oh, he just beat Marty Navis. Now he's fighting Sam Watford. But go back and look at the caliber of opponents that Sam Watford has faced and beat as well, and you'll see why this fight is as much of a scrap as could be.
And I think in the world of MMA, I guess this would be our disclaimer for a second. Like, if you have been following MMA and you're a true fan of MMA, records are out the window. I mean, very minimal in an MMA fight.
I became a fan of Sam Watford watching him fight Dion Rubio live at CES, where it was like, this is a scrap, man. And took Dion to the deep waters before getting finished. But it's like, and now when I saw his name came across, and it's like, he's fighting Pat Casey. I'm looking at the records, and it's like, oh, but that kid's he's a dog.
Yeah.
He's an absolute animal. So I'm excited to see him make his Cage Titans debut as well.
For sure. And I'm excited to see Pat Casey.
Of course, Pat Casey, to see him return with that momentum and the hunger he has to keep climbing the ladder. And, that professional belt that is held by Giannetti, there's some stiff competition that's chomping at the bit to be fighting for that by the end of this year. So
maybe we'll have some announcements this weekend.
Who knows? I think that they usually are.
They usually are. Anyways, moving on to our 12th and our featured bout before we get to the co-main and main event.
We got to get you out of here in 20 minutes. We might do this.
We're not doing bad. Keelan Fantroy out of Real Warrior Fight Team. Where is he? I'm flying him in. Where the hell is he flying? Nebraska.
Yes.
Omaha, Nebraska. Flying in from Omaha, Nebraska to take on Pat Gilbride out of Lozon MMA. We've talked about this fight a little earlier. Keelan Fantroy has been fighting. He had 19 or 20 amateur fights.
Yep.
He's had bare knuckle boxing fights. This kid has done it all.
Straight up kill or be killed in there. It's first round do or die. Very few and far between does he go the distance, but he's explosive with his hands. And if he has you hurt, he has a knack for finding a submission, and that's throughout his amateur career as well. But Pat Gilbride,
he's riding a 2-fight win streak. He won first round on strikes, and then he won back in May a decision over a 3-1 guy. So yeah, he's been a little bit of everything.
And he's on a streak of his own.
Yeah.
But Pat Gilbride, black belt under Danny Avery, he's a dynamic finisher and one of the best practitioners of judo throws that I've seen at Cage Titans. Well-rounded. His last fight, piecing together with the hands and finishing submissions. Just he's been a dynamic finisher since his amateur debut. So this is a scrap where you don't want to blink in the first round. Both of these guys have the capacity to finish it 9 different ways in the first round. It's a fun matchup, and I'm excited to see Gilbride make his return. It's been a little while. He's been commentating
in his last fight. His opponent no-showed the day of the fight after weighing in the day before. So that was a couple events ago. So he's chomping at the bit to get back in the cage. Yeah. And Fan Troy, he's flying in on Thursday, and he's been a pleasure to work with. And he just fought on Anthony Pettis' show in his last fight. So he's been around, and he's been on some big shows. So I don't think he's gonna like wilt under pressure, because sometimes when you got guys that come in from out of state that have fought on some other shows, they come into Cage Titans and they're like, oh wow, this is like, they kind of get a little shocked. But this guy Fan Troy, he's been around. He's not gonna get overwhelmed, because obviously Gilbride packs the house, and he's gonna be bringing a lot of fans. But I don't think he's gonna get overwhelmed, and this would make for a very, very entertaining fight. I think this could be the one to circle on the fight card as well. A lot of them to circle. Anyways, moving on to our co-main event, Robert Lustig coming in to take on the returning Don Shainis. Don Shainis, fresh off his stint in the UFC, former Cage Titans amateur champion, professional champion before he got signed to the UFC. He unfortunately got cut from the UFC, and he's trying to work his way back. Here he is back at Cage Titans, taking on Robert Lustig. Lustig's been training out of Devin Powell School.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Nostos. So there we go.
Oh, so he's repping Nostos now. So he's been putting into work on a more local level. Coming off a win in his own right, Don Shainis went. Oh, did he have 2 or 3 fights?
0-2. He stepped in on his debut against the top 10 guy. You don't see that happen often.
A week's notice, so you don't see that happen hardly ever. But then he flew all the way halfway across across the world and spent time in Australia and
talk about a tough go in the UFC.
Put on a hell of a scrap. But here he is back in his hometown, and Robert Lustig, who is someone who's been fighting since before 2010, before Cage Titans was even a promotion.
Oh, Jesus.
He's been around a long time and has cracked some goose eggs in a couple of different eras of this sport, and has handed some undefeated fighters their first loss, even though he's sporting a record of 8-13, or is he 9-13?
9-13.
He's 9-13.
He made his pro debut in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And a fun fact about him, he just picked up a victory over at Combat FC against Leo Ladera. That was his first win he's ever had in the United States.
Wow.
Because he's from Guam, so a lot of his fights were, not in the U.S. But he came back. He went to a tough decision with Mo Al-Kanani. Then he took a tough decision against Nate Grimard, who's actually in the PFL now, fighting in the PFL. And then he got his first win on United States soil against Leo Ladera, ran a choke in the 3rd round. So he's coming in off a win, and this kid is jacked up to kind of test himself against a guy who's been in the UFC. He's doing everything right. He's came away from his family and kids, and he's been living with Devin Powell up at Nostos for the last few weeks to get his last few weeks of training camp in. He's going to be at the height of his game, and he's been super active. When you look at him, he fought February, then he had a grappling match in April, then he fought in May, then he fought in June. Here he is in July. He's already asking me about September. Not that he's looking past Shainis, but he's like, I want to go.
He wants activity. He wants to fight. He wants to stay active, and he's in the deepest part of the waters that he could be in. Like
Shameless Nation,
you just listed off his last 3 opponents, and staying right into the depth of things, taking on Shameless Don Shainis. And last time Shainis was here, we told him we never wanted to see him fight here again. Proud of him and how he showcased his toughness and skills throughout the
to the world, to the UFC,
through his stint in the UFC, and happy to have him back on his road to get back there as well, because we know he's as dynamic of a finisher and as exciting of a fighter to watch as we have around these parts. So it's one hell of a bounce back fight, and hell of a way to welcome Don Shainis back to Cage Titans, as well as to welcome Robert Lustig to Cage Titans for the first time.
Yeah. And Lustig's been super cool. Like he's been super cool. I think this fight's going to be fun. Shainis gets his opportunity to come back to the local scene and kind of come home to Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
And Lustig is you said he's cracked some goose eggs before.
And like we were saying earlier, like you look on paper, see 2 guys coming back from the UFC and fighting guys with sub 500 records, but don't overlook that. You might see that on paper, but these guys are dangerous finishers who've been in fights that have gone the deep water. So they've seen everything, even though they're fighting guys that are coming off of the big show. Everybody, all 4 fighters are capable of finishing each other respectively in both of these featherweight fights.
And there we go. Moving on to our main event, staying in the featherweight division. Lionel Boogs Young taking on the returning from the UFC, Jay Perrin, former Cage Titans bantamweight champion. He never lost that title before going on the UFC. In his time away with the UFC, the party emerged and won that title. But technically, Jay Perrin has never lost that title. He is going to featherweight for this fight, for his return fight after the UFC. And this is a fight that we talked about earlier. I am so excited about this. Lionel is the most dangerous when he is confident and he's calling his shots. He called for this. He spoke it into an existence over a year ago. And after one of his victories, he started yelling at the commentary booth, you included, I'm coming for that ass, Jay. When you get cut, I'm coming for that ass. And when Jay, was released from the UFC, it was like, all right, who are we going to fight? It's like, it's already written. The book's written. Here we go. We got the promo video. We got it all done. Let's do it. So here we are. Great main event. Lionel Young. Y'all know him, the man, the Purge, and then taking on the Joker, Jay Perrin.
Yeah, and just a similar story from what we were speaking about with Don Shanis. Jay Perrin showcased his skills, didn't come up with the win in the UFC, was in some marquee spots as well. But we know how talented he is and how capable he is to getting back there. Had his moments of shine and had some great moments in the UFC, just like Don Shanis did. So just not excited as we are to have him back on the local scene. We're excited to have him back, to propel him back to that next level as well. Pretty much identical situation, if you will. And he's facing, the only difference is he's not facing a newcomer to the Cage Titans cage. Lionel Boogs Young has made moments happen.
And he's made that moments why Jay was in the UFC.
Well, yes.
The Gilbride victory, the Cooley victory.
Yep.
He had a war with the party. Who else did he fight? There was another guy. Didn't he get another victory?
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Yep.
First round.
He's been finishing guys and keeping his name relevant because he's another guy who's been fighting
hit
since
his debut
2008.
2009, if not earlier, because that was his
throughout weight classes. We've told the story of Lionel Boogs Young on here countless times before, and he's kept his name relevant enough at the top where everybody's familiar enough with his body of work and what he's capable of doing. So you can look at the records on paper and see where Jay Perrin is coming back from, and think of it what you will, but you look at their tape, you look at the impacts that they have had on the crowd at Memorial Hall based on their performances there. It's a dynamic fight that can go any which way throughout MMA. Jay Perrin has his strongest asset in there is his fight IQ. He has a way of nullifying anybody else's strengths or game plan, whether he's beating you with his own strengths or tackling you at your weaknesses and making it his pace of a fight. So Boogs has that X factor where he is capable of dominating anywhere if he gets his range right with his hands or if he gets the right clinch work. He's got some great throws and has been able to find submission finishes throughout his career. So it's going to be fun to see how Jay deals with the larger Lionel Boogs Young jumping up to featherweight and how his style of nullifying any offense of his opponent. That's kind of what it is. It's like Jay has a way. He's got all the tools to be aggressive and leading the dance, but he's kind of like he's a chess player in there with it, where he's got this
standing and banging with him, and then all of a sudden he's shooting a takedown on you. He's holding you against the cage.
And you have no idea what's coming, and he's versatile in any facet of MMA, but so is Boogs.
Yeah.
It's just Boogs has that freak power where it's not necessarily stretched out as much in a game plan, but he has a moment that happens where he gets a finish or dominates a round or whatnot. So
he's that guy, like when he grabs you, it's like, oh shit, okay.
It's a crazy matchup. Tremendous amount of respect for both guys and their skills, and it's just going to be a pleasure to sit back and voice what happens. It's one of the best parts of my day. There's no question about it. Just get to sit back and just talk shit while violence is happening. It's awesome.
Well, there you go, man. Good to see Table Talk. Yeah, Table Titans, we're back. We took the summer off trying to enjoy ourselves a little bit, but we had to come back for fight week and break down the card. We just gave you the breakdown. All 14 matchups going down this Saturday night. Cage Titans 60. Hit up your favorite fighter. If hopefully we motivated you to get to want to come to the show. But we got 14 matchups on tap. There's going to be some big moments in the cage during these fights. We have a couple surprise announcements regarding our next event that we're making that night. So we got a whole fun night out for you. Celebrate your summer with us down in Plymouth at Plymouth Memorial Hall. Cage Titans 60. Hit up your favorite fighter, as we always say. Get your tickets. If you can't, go to cagetitansfc.com to get your tickets online. But it's always best if you can hit up a fighter, be a part of their journey. They get a percentage ticket sales. It helps out their career. So it's always best if you can go there. But if you can't, you can go to cagetitansfc.com. And for those who cannot make the trek to Plymouth, or for our out-of-state fighters who have family and friends back home, Cage Titans and Spectation Sports have teamed up once again. Our broadcast partner, Spectation Sports, has you covered, streaming the entire event live. When you go over to spectationsports.com, use your favorite fighter's last name as the promo code to receive 20% off your order, as well as the fighter gets a kickback percentage, cash percentage of that sale as well. So it helps them out if you can't buy a ticket and help them financially that way. If you buy the stream and use their name, you're helping them out financially that way as well. We got all angles covered. But either way, do not miss this card. There's no reason to miss it. You can be there, or you can watch it at home. Follow, as always, all of our social media at Cage Titans. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. We're on Threads now. I guess that's a cool new big thing.
I don't even know what that is.
So there you go.
Am I getting that old?
I'm getting old too, but shout out to Jaden Curley. Unfortunately, for those who tuned in, he will not be fighting on this card. His opponent, we could not secure. But we're already working on him for September 23rd. He's going to be one of the first guys I match with. So 170-pounders, hit us up. We're looking to match Jaden Curley. But yeah, this Saturday night, Cage Titans commentary booth. King Khan Moy.
Oh, man. I'm
and Andrew Valdina.
Stoked to work with King Khan Moy again. Always a pleasure. He's a staple in the commentary booth, one of the most brilliant minds of a fight analyst that we have in the Northeast. And he's been a staple in the commentary booth. He is tremendous to work with.
He raises up the handsomeness in that booth.
Absolutely does. Because
you're going to be for your money. You and Valdina.
Yeah, well.
Ken Valdina, and you know.
Oh, yeah.
You're the ugly duckling of the crew.
I'm always the ugly duckling. It's okay. Good thing I'm funny. But yeah, Andrew Valdina making his second appearance in the Cage Titans booth. He did an amateur portion of a card a while ago, but he's excited to make his commentary return as he is blossomed into an undefeated professional prospect and is taking this fight card off. So the Gladiator Nation, the Valdina Nation might not
can listen to him on the mic.
Exactly. They get to sit from the comfort of their own home and they get to crack beers and chant his name and listen to him talk about fights as they occur. And excited to work with him and Ken Moy this weekend, as well as Johnny Cupcakes Campbell, who's going to be in
Cupcakes Corner.
Johnny
Cupcake Corner. If you missed it last show, we made an addition to our broadcast where Cupcakes Corner in between rounds will pop up and kind of give his expert analysis on what's going on in the corner and corner advice he would give. Maddie Levine will be back.
Maddie Levine's coming back. So it's like the broadcasting, we've got the commentators, and then it's just like it's growing, it's blossoming and going out into the crowd.
I will tell you,
and it's
I said I was going to keep it to an hour, but I'll tell you, it's so much fun for me because I tell guys this all the time. Just like you were on your martial arts journey as a fighter, and you remember the first day you stepped in the gym. I mean, I remember that as part as well, because I remember my first day stepping in the gym and then me fighting and competing. But I also remember back on this second part of my journey, which is starting Cage Titans. Speaking of the production team, I remember when we used to just film the fights and release them on DVDs with no commentary. Then I remember a day where we would film the fights and I'd go to Dan St. Amour's house, who was the guy who filmed for us. I'd sit in his office and watch the fights by myself with a microphone and pretend I don't know what's happening and commentate after the fact. So I did that for a while. Wow. And then I did it one time. I think I did it with Keegan Hornstra, and we did like a 2-man booth, even though we knew all the results. You got to act surprised, like you don't know what's happening. It was kind of fun. And then to see it grow to the first time we did commentary, you and Richie, which was a mistake. It was supposed to be Sean Gilday and Chris Martino, right?
It wasn't. I don't think it was a mistake.
It wasn't a mistake, but it was. They were originally.
They were originally slated to do it, and Gilday fell ill the day of the fight.
And Martino was like, I'm not talking.
Like, yeah, I didn't want to do it anyway. So I was going to the fights to get hammered and watch it. I usually was. This is back in my getting fat drinking days. I would be 4 Mai Tais deep and drunker than Rob Pico and Mike De Silva combined by the end of the night.
But you and Richie showed up playing same outfits. Khaki pants and a blue shirt.
Yeah. I was already on the way down. I forget what I was at, but like I was gonna change to like jeans and a t-shirt, but he's like, "Oh, come down." I'm like, "Oh, I'm in nice enough clothes," and I just went down.
So you guys originally started with microphones.
Identical outfit. You go back to the old.
You were just standing there with microphones.
We're standing there with microphones, and it gets so loud in there. And you go back and watch the old fights from before we had the headsets, and I still yell, but like I can hear myself speak now, so I yell, but it's much more leveled, and I can hear everybody talking. But back in the old days, with how loud it would get in that building, we would be huddled this close to each other.
Pictures of you guys like this,
just to hear each other talking. And you go back and listen to the commentary. And I annoy the shit out of myself even more than I do listening back to anything I say now. It's just because I'm so loud because there was no way to hear. You had to. You were screaming at the top of your lungs just so someone right next to you could audibly hear the sentence that you were saying.
But it's grown so much. Then it was you guys. Then we got headsets. And
now I got everybody being able to chat with everybody and talk to the Eagles Nest, Eric and Bab up in the Eagles Nest, and Joe Leonard who's running around and making sure everything's running smooth. And now we've got Maddie who's running around the crowd and doing beer chugs and giving her pre-fight breakdown. She's on the team. It's just to see it. Cupcakes doing the Cupcakes corner. It's from whenever.
And what I love is seeing how it's grown with the fighters as well. Because like I remember a couple of years ago going with Jay Perrin and Richie Santiago to the Contender Series, and when they were doing all their rounds of like camera work, the guys when I was sitting there talking to the producers, they were like, "Hey, these guys are great on the mic. Like do they do this often?" I'm like, "Yeah, we have our own people, our own fighters when they're not fighting, doing commentary, doing interviews." Like, because I've said it so many times that like just as important as it is on fight night, it's just as important to get on that mic. It's part of the game. So, that's why we do the back locker room with Iggy and have her doing all the post-fight interviews with those guys, that mic time and doing that. So it's fun that we've been able to kind of grow this production where we're bringing fighters in, because Valdina's a star on the rise. Now he gets some mic time and keep his name out there while he's taking the show off, and it's great opportunities. Guys like Kin, who had long, illustrious careers, now he can come on the commentary team and sprinkle some of that knowledge. Guys like Cupcakes, Cage Titans 1. He fought in Cage Titans 1. So it's been great. So I love it. I can't wait to see the commentary team working together. I can't wait to see the whole team working together this Saturday. It feels like it was just yesterday. It was May 27th. And here we are again, another fight week. And I'm sure September's going to be right there too. So it's fun.
Always is, man. This is going to be a great time as always. The fighters always bring it, and it's for them and the fans. It's what it's all for. Can't wait for it all.
I'm going to put Valdina on the spot because you're in the commentary. I said I was only doing a minute, but Valdina, right now, quickly on the spot, give us your circle moment of the night, if you can. If we can type it up there. I guess you don't have time to explain it, but like, what's the fight or like moment or something that you're most looking forward to? And I'm interested, or anybody. Cage Titans is Zach. Zach Cyril. You almost got a whole show without you, my man. But anyways, I want to hear from you guys. What's the one moment or that circle fight that you guys are most looking forward to? I'd love to hear that. While we wait for those in the comments, I really do have a great feeling about. There we go, Valdina. I have a great feeling about the McDougal versus Ozzy fight.
All right.
I do have a great. There you go. You heard it from the Gladiator himself. The McDougal versus Ozzy fight. Maybe you might have to. We don't do it often. We might have to move that fight up to the main card.
Who knows?
It might be worthy of the main card.
7-7.
I know 7-7 makes it nice, but come on, maybe a pro fight to kind of end undercard and then open it with the amateur title fight.
We'll see
What do you guys
happens.
think? Let me know. Anyways, as always, we are going to be doing
Cyril-
weigh-ins
Cyril
on
fighting.
Friday. Weigh-ins Friday. This time it's at Pins in Kingston. We used to do it there.
Oh shit! All right. Yeah.
So we're back at Pins in Kingston. Great arcade, all kinds of fun stuff going on there at weigh-ins. So come on down. It's open to the public. If you can't, we will be live streaming the weigh-ins, so you can check it out online as well. Live stream at 1. On Friday, Saturday, we have the Second Win pregame party. Rob Pico's heading up. Before you come to Cage Times around 2, 3 o'clock, head on down to Second Win Brewery, grab a beer. Rob Pico will be down there doing his ticket giveaway. So go see Rob Pico down there at the pregame party. Doors open at 5, first fight at 6. As always, after party at Second Wind. They'll have the pizza kitchen open till midnight. So I think they have a band that night as well. So another great time. That's your fight week rundown. I got nothing else.
I got nothing else either. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I can't wait. I love these weekends. These are the best. So
Let's go.
All right.
See you at
let's
the
go.
fights.
See you at the fights.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. We got to get the hell out of here.